So you're looking for an F1 team to root for this year, but all you know is Red Bull or Lewis Hamilton. Well, this is going to be the ultimate guide to help you decide on which team to select by an American. Now, choosing an F1 team is vital and important in your journey to becoming an F1 fan, because once you have selected a team,
there's no leaving or switching.
Okay, now that we got that out of the way, let's get started. Now, F1 is a sport that has 10 teams, each fitted with 2 different drivers that all range from different personalities, from goofy and fun to serious and confused. If you have never watched an F1 race, or just getting into it after hearing all the buzz from last year's Las Vegas GP, or you just finished watching the accurate and never wrong Netflix documentary Drive to Survive, well, this is a great year to start, because judging from last year's season and the information we received from this year's pre-testing, we should hopefully only hear the Dutch national anthem only 24 times this year, which coincidentally is how many races are on this year's F1 calendar. Oh, wait. Alright, now that I've buttered you up a little bit about F1, let's get into the racing teams. Alright, so first on our lineup, we have Haas. So Haas is an American team that really isn't American due to the fact that they will literally sell their team to anybody that is the highest bidder. They've been known to be in a few scandals, not saying that it was all their fault, but they have been in ties with some fake companies or just very, very rich billionaires that right now lives in a country that has a little bit of issues with America. Now, the 2 drivers that are on their lineup used to actually hate each other up until a couple of years ago.
Driver of the grid. My bolts, mate. Yeah.
But now they've become some of the most likable people on the grid. But although they are the most likable, they never really got a shot to being the big dog. Now, this team at the moment is the underdogs that some fans root for, but for some reason they always get forgotten until the 2 teammates either tangle up with each other or tangle up with someone else. Now, although they are always fighting in the back and a lot of people forget about them, sometimes they have surprise finishes and actually finish in the top 5. So if you like a team that's just very mysterious, you really don't hear about them much, and it's like that kid in that friend group that is always in the background, doesn't really talk, and this is the team for you. Okay, next team we have is Sauber. Now, this team has a big history, as it used to be one of the greatest teams and actually forged the way for another big team and big car company. But now this once historic grand team has now sold their soul to become part of the younger crowd. In modern day though, these guys are basically the younger brother who somehow was also the older brother of a current popular F1 team that also has their own internal conflicts, but we'll get into that later. Now, the drivers here, we got one that is just always dripped out in some of the best fashion, but also sometimes makes some questionable choice. And the other one was once a feared young man who was beaten so bad by a team, he lost all mental stability and started selling calendars where he shows his bare ass. Now, these guys aren't the worst on the grid, but they sometimes always seem to be finding themselves in the back. Now, this team is the team that's always there to pick up the pieces and get some points, but are always fighting to show that they are not the worst on the grid. In current F1, these guys are the underdogs that year by year are starting to look more like a neon flashing light to get any attention from the F1 fandom. And right now, these guys are like the middle child that's just fighting to get attention from the parents. Now, if you feel like you're the invisible child and you're always fighting to get attention, this team is the perfect team for you. So next on the grid, we have Alpine. Oh, I'm sorry. I mean Alpine. Now, this is the Frenchiest French team that has ever been assembled of all of France. This team's biggest threat is not other cars on the grid, but it's actually themselves. They always talk big game, but they actually never deliver. It's like having that one guy that just wears only expensive jewelry, but he works at a Tesco or McDonald's and drives a 1999 Toyota Corolla. Now, on one hand with the drivers, you have an unlikable driver who always seems to get a penalty, even when he's not even racing, and will fight his teammate harder than anybody else on the grid just to show that he's the better child. And on the other hand, you have a young Frenchman with great hair, beautiful blue eyes, and drives like an angel. Wait, what? I mean, he's a very good driver that looks really good and drives really fast. I lost my point. Now, this team is a team that can become great, but they just need to be real with themselves and just needs to explore the inner self to realize that they aren't as great as they think they are. Now, the dilemma that you come with rooting for this team is that you're always rooting for one driver because he's just so dang adorable. Wait. But you're always reminded about the second child that just literally destroys everything he touches and somehow gets in trouble in school even when he's not in school. So in conclusion, if you like baguettes, Paris, or just the French language, then this team is the team for you. Alright, so now we're starting to get into some of the midfield teams. Now, the first one I want to bring up is Williams. Now, Williams is one of the biggest underdog story with a huge 80s and 90s history. So if you're really big into grunge and nostalgia, this is the team for you. Now, this team is very nostalgic, but has lost their ways in the past couple years, but they are coming back. This is like that popular kid who peaked in high school, but now is just trying to get his life together in his 30s, kind of like me. Now, the first driver that we have is an American hero who doesn't know what a kilometers, but somehow always knows where the barrier is. Now, I'm not throwing shade at him. He is a great driver, don't get me wrong, but unfortunately, he is getting outclassed by the second driver who changes his hair more than Lady Gaga changes her outfit. But you can't seem to hate him. He's always that guy that is just very, very likable, and even if you hate him, you still like him just because he's just so dang charismatic. Now, this team has the potential to be up there battling out with the big dogs, but they just need a little bit of love and care, and luckily they have a team principal that is bringing them up through the ranks, and hopefully we can see them fighting again with the big guys. Now, if you decide to root for this team and the drivers, don't get too comfortable, as most likely there is going to be a huge driver shakeup with the Williams team, as both of them might not actually be in Williams next year. So if you peaked in high school and you're just trying to survive your 20s and 30s, then the Williams team is the great spot for you. Okay, next on the grid, we have the RB Visa Cash App Toro Rosso F1 team. Anyways, this team is basically like if the parents forgot about the younger child just because their older sibling was just much more popular and much more successful in their life. Now, you have two drivers that everybody loves in Daniel Ricciardo and Yuki Tsunoda. Now, Daniel Ricciardo is that one driver who is just liked by everybody on the grid and is that one friend at the party that always gets along with everyone. But although he is the one that's always having a great time, internally, he is fighting a lot of demons due to a past relationship that he just cannot get over. Anyways, on the other hand, we have Yuki Tsunoda. Now, Yuki Tsunoda is that one guy that is really, really cool and just loves cooking. He will invite you over to his house, cook your favorite food, but don't be afraid if randomly he just starts to have a mental breakdown and curses out loud due to the fact that he accidentally burned the chicken. Now, when it comes to their driving, both of them are good, but not good. Both of them can wrestle a car around and do really, really well if given the opportunity. But at the same time, you don't expect them to be winning every single race if they were in a better car. And you just kind of expect them to always be near the front if they were given the opportunity to drive a faster car. Now, you guys are probably questioning yourself, well, why does this look so much like the Red Bull team? Well, this team is basically the development team, and it's basically the youth academy to try to make it into the bigger team of Red Bull. But sometimes they decide to switch out the youth academy with the older Red Bull squad, which doesn't make any sense, but don't think too hard about it. Anyways, this team has a huge identity crisis as they have had 3 different name changes just in the past few years. And not only that, they seem to get the wackiest wins that always happen in Italy. Anyways, if you feel like you are great but always get outshined by the older sibling, this is going to be the F1 team for you. Onward to our next team, we have Aston Martin. Now, Aston Martin is basically a rich daddy team. Think of this team as the rich kid that doesn't do any work during class but copies the smart kid's homework and changes just one answer to make it look different. Now, this team has one of the greatest drivers that has ever lived and is basically immortal, as he is a 25-year-old veteran stuck inside a 42-year-old man's body. But you put him into any car and he will probably be the fastest person to ever drive that car. Now, driving right next to him, you have the owner's son. That's basically it. Oh, wait, and sometimes he gives the most sassiest driver interviews on the grid.
He's right over here. Why don't you ask him?
I already spoke with him.
No, I was busy driving the car.
Okay, all right.
Now, the Aston Martin team is one that is never really on top of things, but it's never really out of control either. They have their moments of brilliance and can be ridiculously quick, only to fade at the end of the year. So if you like to be rich and lazy and you really don't care how you get good results, just as long as you get them, then this is the team for you. Rounding up the midfield team, we have McLaren. Now, this team has a long span of history, as this was one of the first times we ever saw the driver actually drive his own car on the F1 grid and actually win some races. Not only that, McLaren has won a couple of championships, but in the last decade, they had seemed to have lost themselves a little bit. Luckily, they are coming back. Now, this team is all about fun, as one of their drivers was actually just a Twitch streamer that just became a driver. And the second driver is someone who has the talent of a vicious lion with the personality of a plank of wood. Now, this team has a lot of history and has had some of the biggest names driving for this team. And although they've had their ups and downs, they are finally back on the recovery phase. Basically like a drug addict that found help and is now recovering from their addiction. Now, although the car does look like a billboard that is occupied by basically every corporate business known to man, they still seem to have that spark that just makes them outshine their car against everybody else on the grid. Now, if you want to root for a team that will never win a championship soon, but potentially win a race once in a blue moon, or you're just a recovering drug addict, this is the team for you. Okay, so now getting into the big three. Now, the first one we have is Mercedes AMG. Now, if I had to explain Mercedes in a few words, it was basically dominance and perfection, as this was the team's motto during the 2010s. This was probably the most dominant team up until recently. Now, Mercedes has some of the greatest looking people. I mean, look at this lineup. And to explain them in the recent years, they were basically a well-oiled machine up until someone forgot to do the oil change. And now they kind of sandbagged down the past couple of years. Now, we got two drivers. We got Hamilton and Hamilton replacement, aka Russell. Lewis Hamilton is a name that nobody needs to be reminded of, as he is going to be a legend in F1, as currently he has the most amount of wins and he is tied for the most amount of championships with Michael Schumacher. Now, although Hamilton's a legend, he is a legend that soon is going to need therapy, as he's going to be leaving Mercedes for an Italian franchise that is known for having drivers spend millions and millions of dollars on therapy, but we will get back into that. Now, the next driver Mercedes has is Hamilton's replacement, aka George Russell. This is a young, great driver that has a lot of potential, but still makes some hilarious mistakes that keeps him from becoming a great driver. So in conclusion, if you're looking for a team that has all the championships and the glory, but is equivalent to Usain Bolt slipping on a rock, breaking his leg, and then just trying to get back into the road to recovery, this will be the team for you. Okay, on to the second of the big three. We have Ferrari. Now, Ferrari is one of the most famous, yet one of the most messiest teams with trust issues. And it's a little bit sad because it's like seeing a very famous and great Hollywood actor who is currently always in scandals, but always reminisces about the good old days when they were young. Because this team has one of the most successful heritage, and in definition, they are F1. Now, this team has been around since the beginning of F1 and are always a team everyone wants to root, but they know that once they root for them, that means that they are sacrificing their sanity. Now, both of the drivers for Ferrari were both young men who were full of hopes and dreams, but has been stripped away from all their youth and their normal mentality due to unhinged management of the team, and now they are middle-aged men needing therapy for all their trauma. Now, although these guys are going to have PTSD for the rest of their life, they are some of the best looking drivers on the field. You don't need to ask me, just ask my girlfriend, who has now become one of the biggest Charles Leclerc's fan. Now, both of these drivers can be the best about once or twice during the season. Now, fortunately, they both start off in a great position in the beginning of the season, only to get stabbed in the back harder than Simba did by Scar. Now, Ferrari is going to get a legendary driver in Lewis Hamilton next year, but unfortunately, they are leaving the Chile man Spaniard of Carlos Sainz out to dry, even though he scored their only win last year. And that's enough to tell you what kind of decisions that they make here on this team. So basically, if you root for this team, it's like scoring a 10 out of 10 girl or guy until you start dating them and you find out that they have trust issue, maxes out your credit card, and then manipulates you into thinking that you are the problem, but you still love them because, hey, they are the sexiest person in the world. All right, now coming down to our final team, and that is Red Bull. Now, Red Bull is like if you just maxed out your character on an RPG and then you're just rerunning the game on easy mode. This is basically the way Red Bull has been operating in the past couple of years. Red Bull is currently the most dominant team and the most hated team due to them winning everything. Not only that, they are always in the middle of breaking the rules, but somehow the rules never apply to them. Now, a lot of Red Bull's success comes to their car engineer and designer, who literally has a supercomputer for a brain. But not only that, anything that he draws on paper, as well as any car that he builds, he has the driver that can wrestle the beast and can extract 100% out of the car in Max Verstappen. Now, Max Verstappen is the driver with daddy issues, but also one of the most dedicated and addicted racer to be on the grid, as this rumor of him building a sim rig into his private jet can't tell you enough. But Verstappen is one of those drivers on the grid that can literally drive any out of control car just because he thinks it's fun, and will literally run over a baby just to get the win. Now, the other driver is just there to be there, but luckily he has some of the most passionate fans on earth. Try talking bad about him and you are doomed to get into a fist fight. Now, with Pettis, he is sometimes the most fastest driver on the grid, but most of the time he looks more lost than I do at a public event. So if you like to be the villain in your life and you get super happy winning a running race against 5-year-old kids, then Red Bull is the team for you. Alrighty, that concludes it, guys. Those are the 10 teams that you can root for in the 2024 F1 season. Let me know if I missed anything from any of these teams, and let me know who you guys are going for this season in the comments down below. And if you guys enjoyed the video, hit that like button, smash the subscribe button, all that YouTube stuff. And until next time, hope you guys have a great one. And until then, peace.